see once a year, sleep on their couches and drink their beer. They help carry the weight, no matter how long. Their voices never fade, singing you'll never be alone. Such a small little world in a big country. I'm turning on the radio, it's Paul McCartney. It's good to be alive, but sometimes it feels like I got a lot of ground to cover in a little bit of time. I go through stages where I wish I'd stay still, but I got a new pair of soles and my feet just tell me that I never will. These places got arms just holding you in. A cup of something warm's all I need to make me feel like me again. It's such a small little world in a big country. I'm turning on the radio, it's Paul McCartney. It's good to be alive, but sometimes it feels like I got a lot of ground to cover in a little bit of time. When the car breaks down in the middle of nowhere, I wanna walk away, I wanna leave it there. Sometimes I wanna just slow down, wanna walk away, it will be easier. But when a small world in a big country, I'm turning on the radio, it's Paul McCartney. And I've never been the one who could let it be. Turn on the radio, you wonder if it is me. You realize sometimes it feels like I got a lot of ground to cover when we're in a small little world in a big country. Sitting on the porch and singing Paul McCartney. It's good to be alive, but sometimes it feels like I got a lot of ground to cover in a little bit of time. I'm so eloquent. When I was 10 years old, I decided I was going to be in the Beatles. Up until then, I was a shy, awkward homeschooler. My life filled with books, chickens in the backyard, and an unrivaled enthusiasm for collecting plastic ponies. But one summer evening, my parents brought home the 1965 Beatles movie, Help, from our public library. And little did I know that even before the end credits had finished rolling, before I could fully process that sweet, sweet voice of Paul McCartney, the trajectory of my life found its direction and all hell broke loose. Maybe it was a hasty decision on my part to have already figured out the rest of my life just as I stepped into my double digits with next to no life experience. But I felt like I had just come alive, like Frankenstein's monster, filled with the magic and electricity of alchemy, or whatever. I was 10. But I could hear it, the hum. It was a song made of melodies and stories, flooding my mind and into my body, coming from and leading to one single source. My calling and I had found each other. And like a romantic movie, we ran towards one another, a distant symphony swelling into a crescendo. I think some of them are dead, my dad blurted out. Yes, unfortunately at this point, the Beatles had been broken up for several decades, and John Lennon tragically had left this world for the next, and I was devastated. My dream, only hours old, already had a substantial roadblock. But hasty decision notwithstanding, the sound, the impression that had been made on me that night was too great, and the sound of the hum was still inside me. So I learned to play guitar, and I learned to sing, at first with a British accent. But when I found my own voice, I learned to write my own songs. And when I turned 15, I had my first paying gig. I played 3 hours of other people's music in a sports bar under a massive TV during the Stanley Cup playoffs. And while I was not a part of the British invasion, as I initially intended, following the hum took me on some pretty interesting adventures as my... Oh, there it is. But following the sound of the hum took me on some pretty interesting adventures as my career progressed. Like this one time, I sang "Somewhere Over the Rainbow" with a 64-piece orchestra. And then this other time, I was a singing telegram, 4 a.m, complete with balloons and a kazoo, for an alarmed but good-sported woman at a nearly abandoned office building. Then there was the time my music and I appeared on a reality makeover TV show. Apparently, I did not know what to wear. I've also recorded 5 self-funded albums in a variety of different studios, ranging anywhere from fancy vintage rooms oozing of musical history to makeshift spaces inside hotel room closets with microphones dangling from coat hangers and pillows dampening the sounds of neighboring TVs. I've had the opportunity to tour all over the US and Canada and Europe, playing thousands of shows from theaters to college cafeterias, musty rock and roll clubs to backyards, some children's birthday parties, a few funerals, a prison, and one summer he even sang the national anthem in a sports stadium while dressed like a popular space princess. You know which one I'm talking about. On tour, I've slept on couches, in cars, in airports, on the floor of a family-owned movie rental store. I've done voiceover recording for a cartoon, an antidepressant medication, fire safety, and once for an extremely detailed medical procedure. I even had my song placed in a movie. I only found out later that it was an adult film, but it was still a movie and my mom was still proud. Sure. It's not always been glamorous or easy to pay my bills, and singer-songwriter, touring, recording artist, space princessing, medical procedural voice actor, singing telegram, and porno musician doesn't really fit on a business card. But I've come to learn that passion doesn't always fit inside a pretty box. And while following it to the ends of the earth can bring unparalleled joy and fulfillment, it's not always a pretty chord made with a major third and a perfect fifth either. As I got older, I realized that following the sound of the hum can at times get in the way of things like saving money for rent, or utilities, or gas for the car, or say fixing a broken arm from that one time you tripped over nothing, too consumed by music in your headphones. Yet I don't usually mind compromising for the hum. Like, I'd much rather buy an instrument than go on vacation, or a set of guitar strings and go out to dinner. And I don't mind shopping at thrift stores or sticking with peanut butter and jelly for most dinners, because for me, that just means I'm able to spend more time creating something, even if I don't get paid for it. However, to some romantic partners over the years, this very same perspective has played like the first movement of a long and somber requiem. In our relationship, what happens when we want to start saving money for our future, but me taking on extra gigs doesn't quite hold up my end of the bargain? Or if we want to talk about planning a family, but I'm on tour for over half of each year, what happens when he asks me to come to bed night after night and I can't get the hum out of my head and I just have to get it out on paper or I will never get to sleep? The hum can get so loud that sometimes it drowns out other melodies, like the sound of walking down the aisle, or having a lawn to mow, a book club, holidays with family, date nights, normal hours, my own bed, a dog, or a baby. I know all of these things also make beautiful noises, but sometimes I can't hear them over my hum. And this makes me ask, is following the hum selfish? Will it make me lonely? Is it okay to choose my passion for music over my relationships? Does that make me a bad person? Can the amount of joy that I get from this choice make up for the things I may never have? Well, it's questions like these that can sometimes cause a looping issue, wherein the input of doubt interacts with the output of confidence, creating confusion and causing something similar to what is known as the Larson effect, or feedback. Here, the sound builds upon itself, generating a deafening squeal, much like the ones utilized in hair metal guitar solos. Recently, the more I continued to question myself, the harder it was for me to hear that hum, and the fainter it grew. And at times, it felt more like a buzz, like an irritating mosquito, and I wanted to bat it away. And sometimes, the worst of all, I would just drown it out altogether, and all I would hear inside myself was silence. I had questioned away the very thing that brought me to life in the first place. But sometimes it feels impossible not to second-guess yourself when a partner stands there in front of you like the end of a sad story, asking you to choose. For better or for worse, I chose music. Thankfully, time does this thing where it glues you back together. Not always in the right order, and sometimes pieces are missing, but eventually your broken heart stops asking for pints of mint chip ice cream and a reread of the Harry Potter series, and it starts making time for you again. And it's not that those questions have disappeared, it's that time has created a space where you can hear some answers. So instead of seeing myself on a path riddled with things I may never have or a messy, undefinable career, I try to see what I saw when I was young, before all the rules, before I was afraid of being different, before I was afraid of being alone. Instead, I see a world of possibility, variety, and unapologetic adventure. Listening to the hum is the only time I feel like I'm not just adding to the noise out there. It's when, in my own little way, I feel like I'm able to contribute to the music that the world is creating around me. So I will follow it wherever it goes. That is, until someone gives Paul McCartney my number, and I finally get to be in the Beatles. Thank you. When the moon is out and I'm in the spotlight, everything that make a shadow calling, come on outside. It's just like me to wake things up in the middle of the night when my heart won't stop. Oh, ooh. And it's just like me to wanna take the bait when the music's called. I wanna hop on that train. Woo. If the world's a stage, I wanna play my part. If the only one that hears me is my own damn heart. And it's just like me to stand there tough with my head on crooked and my mind made up. And it's just like me to wanna 10 years old, already knew who I was despite what I was told. Whoa, what I was told. Whoa, gotta listen to the hum ringing, running through me like it's gonna keep me living. Keep my body moving. moving like I do. Oh, and boy, my body like to move. Oh, and it comes from the ground up. I turn the sound up and listen to the hum inside. Well, it's just like me till being practical. Got no plan B, said I got no goals. Ooh. And it's just like me to listen to the hum when my heart keeps a beat. Then I gotta play along, oh, play along. Oh, gotta listen to the hum ringing, running through me like it's gonna keep me living. Keep my body moving like I do. Oh, I'm on my body like to move. Oh, and it comes from the ground up. I turn the sound up and listen to the hum inside. Thank you.